and I'm just gonna let everyone in. So let's get it
Yeah,
started.
Adam, I'm gonna start introducing what we're doing here. Okay, so wow, a lot of people joining. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We will be waiting for a couple of more minutes before we dive into the topic of tonight. We want to make sure that everybody who's interested in joining will have the time to make it, to be fashionably late if you want to this event. But before we start introducing the topic for tonight and our wonderful guests, which I'm super happy to have tonight, I just want to start with a little icebreaker, or let's say a get to know each other activity. And I'm inviting everyone who already joined to write their city and country, the location they're in right now in the chat, so we can see the different parts of the world being represented in this call. So if everybody will do that, I'm also going to start and write my location. That would be a fun way to sort of get to know each other, or at least understand the map, the geography of this call. Oh, wow. It's starting to, hey, hey, hey. Oh, I'm so happy to see so many people from all parts of the world. Yeah, this is like even more eclectic than I expected. Hi. Oh, somebody's in Greece. Are you on holiday, Olia, or in Lefkada? I think it's a wonderful holiday destination, so it might be that you're on holiday. I hope you're enjoying it. It's not too hot. Yeah. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Please continue to write your location. I want to see the complete list of the participants and where they are from. And I'm gonna go ahead and introduce the topic of tonight and why we're doing it, the context. As some of you probably know already, Mento and the people in this call are either, some of the people in the call are either students at Mento, or they're mentors, or even founders at Mento, like my case. And we're doing this event because while Felix, when we'll get to talk about him, is doing it even more, even before and even better than us, we're also trying to promote mentorship and the importance of mentoring when you're transitioning and eventually transition then even beyond, the importance of mentoring in UX design. And we do that because when we set out to build this UX UI bootcamp we're running now, we started exploring the problem space of UX education. And very quick into this problem space, we discovered the main finding, or the dominant theme that kept appearing, was that what helped people most, or what felt most valuable in their transition story, is the fact that they had a mentor, or for some that they lacked the presence of a mentor, and that was detrimental to their success or speed or efficiency in transitioning. So that's when we realized that to maybe upgrade the education space for UX design, we definitely need to start from the mentoring relationship. And that's how Mento was born, and that's how we decided to call it Mento. And so, yeah, the bottom line is that we uncovered this. Well, it seems like a no-brainer, but it's actually maybe not discussed enough. The fact that mentorship is essential to your growth and your entry into a new field. So yeah, we feel that these conversations are never enough. I think that the industry should be talking more about it. I think that they have a value both on an individual level, in everyone's own journey, but also they have value for the industry as a whole, because I think that still there are many people today who maybe didn't really grasp the importance of mentoring. Maybe they don't know how to find a mentor. Maybe they don't know what criteria might matter, or they might apply when they make this decision. So these are some of the themes that we want to discuss tonight. How to choose a mentor, where to find him, and also for those who are not so new to the design industry, if you're here, hi everyone, senior designers, we will be touching on how to maximize the relationship, the mentoring relationship, if you want, how to make the most of this relationship once you have it. So I think there's something valuable for everyone in this call, and I'm gonna just go ahead and introduce the awesome guests we have for tonight. I'm incredibly happy they accepted to join us. I'm going to start with Frankie. Frankie is one of our favorite emerging creators in design. I think she's not that emerging anymore. She's been around for a while. She's had a fruitful transition to UX design. She's done it through a UX bootcamp, and recently she landed a job with Adobe, which is like probably every aspiring designer's dream to have one of his first jobs with such an incredible company. And also, I think that she's been giving back to the community since day one, because she has been creating valuable and articulate content, and also mentoring aspiring and junior designers. So she's very active in this space, and actually LinkedIn recognized her as one of the top voices in design, which is incredible. And I just want to give her the opportunity to give a little intro or add anything to what I just said.
Hey everyone, thank you for that intro. That was super kind and greatly appreciated. Super excited to be here. This is, a topic really near and dear to my heart, so really can't wait to get into it. But just to kind of jump a little bit more into kind of who I am is, so I'm an experienced designer at Adobe currently, but I kind of like to consider myself more of a problem solver or someone who loves to solve problems. I think at the end of the day, that's really what we're all doing in this industry. And so like many of yourself, I believe as was mentioned, I'm a boot camper. And for me, what happened was in that transition from kind of boot camp student to full-time or just worker in this industry and working life, I felt like there wasn't really a lot of information out there to really help with that transition. And so I right off the bat kind of jumped into that to try and fill that space, and to really try and bridge that gap for anyone who really was now in that position that I was in. So I've been doing that through, mentorship, and then also posting content on LinkedIn and Instagram. But really just can't wait to start this conversation, because I think it really is important. So thanks again, everyone, for including me in this. Really can't wait.
Thank you so much, Frankie. And I think you're doing an incredible job, and I'm really excited that we get to have this conversation together. And I also want to introduce Felix, which I think maybe for some of you needs no introduction, because if you've been on LinkedIn in the past few weeks, you've probably seen ADP list everywhere. ADP stands for Amazing Design People. And it's a project that I feel like I was there from the very beginning, or at least if I look on LinkedIn, I have like 1 month later than Felix has on the time on the timeline. So it's an incredible project that's meant to democratize mentorship and to reach as many designers with top mentors, and bridge this gap of mentorship in the market in a free way, which is incredible. And the more incredible news, or I think it's not necessarily unbelievable, but I'm really happy this happened. Felix recently raised 1.3 million, which is like, I feel weird saying it. It's such an insane amount to grow this incredible field that he's in. And I just want to give him the opportunity to introduce himself and tell us a couple of words about him and his mission.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Iona. Hey, everyone. How are you all doing? Very great to be here and seeing some really familiar faces. My name is Felix, and I'm currently based in Singapore. And I'm really excited to be here tonight in Singapore's 10 p.m. time. I'm sure everyone is in a different time zone. I'm excited to be here because mentorship is something that is very close to me, and obviously at ADP, this is what we all do. Today we live in a world where knowledge is shared in the hands of a few, right? You either be a part of a really exclusive club, or you pay into some program where you kind of pay a hefty sum, and obviously you kind of like get the knowledge, or you never really kind of like get to someone that could teach you something. Right. And one of the things that ADPs that we often talk about is the idea of democratizing mentorship. It's really about bringing the knowledge from somewhere where, the privileged kind of get access to, and helping them to, distribute their knowledge across the world to people who might never had the chance to have it. And, we have been doing that since last year during the pandemic, and this year as well. I'm super excited and also incredibly humble and grateful to be doing that. One of the things is that, I always say that we are sort of like a Robin Hood for knowledge, right? We take the knowledge from the privileged and give it to the rest of the world, and that's what we're doing. We started off, helping designers with mentorship, and today we are still very strong in design, and we have actually expanded a little bit into product managers, So if any one of you here are interested in product management as well, there are some product managers there for you to reach out to. And yeah, we're super excited to continue and pursuing this mission. And one of the things is that, mentorship is not just about for you when you kind of need to look for a job. It is for everyone who actually wants to upskill themselves and continue to grow in their career. We all need a mentor every part of our career, and we want to be there with you every step along the way. So yeah, back to you.
That's absolutely incredible. And I think that one thing that I feel like I have to say is that 1.5 years ago, or maybe even less than that, ADP list was like an Excel. Now it's a company that raised 1.3 million. So that's absolutely an incredible journey. I think it's inspirational both on an entrepreneurial level, if you want, but also it goes to show that the world is recognizing the importance.
Well, I don't know what's going on there with this.
Hey, sorry, please mute yourself, everyone. Yeah, so yeah, it's a sign that the world is basically recognizing and acknowledging the importance of mentorship and how much value it helps circulate between people in the world. So it's a great sign. I'm happy this is happening, and congratulations once again, Felix, for leading the way into the world of free democratized mentorship. So getting back to the topic for today, I'm gonna say it up front that we are time boxing this event to 1 hour. So I'm gonna try and make the most out of this 1 hour that we have available. In the past few days, I've collected a couple of questions from my audience, from the community. So I will be asking this question in an outline that makes sense and tries to cover as many facets of the mentorship space as possible. So I'm going to start with a broader question, just an introductory question. And I'm going to ask Frankie first. Why do you feel that mentoring is important? So why does mentoring matters? It's a simple question, but it can have any sorts of answers. So please, over to you.
Sorry, that was on me. You can unmute now.
Thank you. Sorry, it wasn't letting me unmute there. So yes, why is mentoring important? So I'd say there's two reasons for that. The first is I think it's a great way to really see what's available in the industry. I think that, especially with this industry right now, it's constantly growing, constantly increasing in terms of, the different niche markets that are available within it. And I think that the best way to really figure out, other than obviously being in one of those positions, but when you're just starting out, that's not always feasible. So I think it's a great way to really just to learn what's out there and what your options are, just by having those conversations with people who are in those shoes, basically. And then the other piece is, I think it also gives a realistic impression of what kind of the day-to-day is like. I think there's ways you can read, you can do boot camps, you can practice, the list goes on and on of what you can really do to prepare to be a UX designer or an experience designer. But at the end of the day, I think the best way to really figure out like what skill sets are going to be important for, X company or X role, the best way is really through these conversations with people that you can, reach out to and ask just a question and say, hey, look, like, how do I do this? Or what should I be focusing on? Just to really get better insights from someone who is, a year, 2, 5, 10 years, whatever it is, ahead of you in their career. So yeah, those are the two biggest things I'd say.
And I think you touched on another important thing, the fact that you are reaching out to someone who is 1 or 2 or a couple of years ahead of your career. And I also want to get back later to choosing a mentor and what criteria one should go for. But I also want to hear Felix's opinion around why mentorship is important. I think that he's been thinking a lot about mentorship for the past year. So I'm really curious to hear why it matters most in your perspective.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a great question. One of the things about having a mentor is that, obviously you don't really have to make as much of like the common mistakes that people had made, right? And a lot of these mistakes are actually not shared publicly online. As you know, there is always a fear of sharing such, failures and mistakes online as well. And people don't share those lessons as publicly as you'd like to think, right? Now, think about it. If you go to LinkedIn today, or if you go on Twitter, or you go on like, Instagram, you would see people sharing a lot about like, the day-to-day design processes, right? But rarely do you ever see that someone tells you that, hey, I sort of messed this up, right? And you don't really learn mistakes from like from posts, right? And you only learn mistakes from your mentors, and they actually share it genuinely with you, right? Okay, this is something that I should have done. This is something that I should have done better. And having a mentor almost helps you to navigate where you want to be in the next couple of years. And I always feel like a mentor is also like a sounding board where you can voice your ideas or flash your thoughts, and have someone who is more experienced to take a look at it, right, from a different perspective, right? And I feel like mentor doesn't have to always be someone who is more experienced. It could be just someone who gives a different perspective and challenges you to be better. In fact, today I have mentors who are just the same age as me, or probably probably the same years of experience. And I think that's the thing that I look for, is that someone who is able to challenge me to think bigger, challenge me to actually think differently. I think that's a really important part of being a mentor, and not just giving you sort of like the food, right? Not just spoon feeding you, but actually giving you the guidance, actually questioning you, so that you can actually seek the answer for yourself, and also take the steps that are necessary for your own career. So yeah, that's why I think mentorship is important, because if you want to be where you want to be, you will need someone who probably has done that, or could give you a very different perspective to take that route. So yeah.
I think that you've both touched a little on what it takes to find a mentor, to choose a mentor, and that it doesn't necessarily have to measure in a particular set of years of experience, or it's not age related. The reasons for choosing a mentor shouldn't be necessarily linked to the years of experience. But maybe I would like to go deeper into this space and explore the criteria that somebody should look at when they're choosing a mentor. So, okay, now I understand. So I'm this person that now understands that I need a mentor, but how do I choose which mentor, or how do I understand what person I'm going for? And then the follow-up question would be, how do I actually find that person? So I think it's two questions in one. How do you know how to choose your mentor? And then how do you find that person, or those people, if it's a group, it's a couple of people that you want to be mentored by? So to the first question, how do you know how to choose the mentor? Frankie, what's your opinion around this?
I want to kind of veer off the question slightly for 1 second, and then I promise I'll get into it, but they interconnect here and why I want to do that. So I think it's important to say that there's kind of two different types of mentorship in essence, in the sense that there's kind of the formal mentorship, like ADP list, where you have someone who's called your actual mentor, like they have the title of that. And that's kind of one route in one bucket. But then I'd also say there's the other route where it's kind of less formalized. They may not be called, your mentor. It may not be someone you necessarily consider as a mentor, but they're in that kind of position, in the sense of like it's someone you look up to, or it's someone you tend to always go to for questions. And this can be someone who, if you're a boot camp student, it can be one of your instructors. Maybe you stayed in contact with them and it's kind of your go-to person, or something like that along those lines. And so I just wanted to kind of put that out there and kind of define like those two buckets, because I think that also plays a role into your question of, how do you go about finding it? Because I think there's those two routes of going out and saying, okay, I want an actual quote unquote mentor, someone who I can find and, sit down and have kind of formalized chats. Or, there's the other one where you kind of more so just kind of stumble into it. So I've had both in my career. I've had people where I've just kind of ended up like, I still don't call him my mentor, but I still like jokingly like to other people will say, oh, he's my mentor. He's just someone who's kind of appeared and kind of just happened to stay in my life and is kind of my go-to person. But then I've also, thanks to Felix, been a mentee on ADP list as well at the very beginning of it, and still have relationships with those people who I, went out and reached out to and made it sure that like I actually had conversations with them. And for me to kind of go a little bit more back to the question of what I was really looking for was, something I had in common with them. I wanted to make sure that I could actually have a conversation with them, and someone that, for me at my point in my career at that point, I wanted someone who I could continue the conversation with. I didn't want like a one-off time mentorship. So I was looking for someone who had something in common with me, or I liked their bio for whatever reason, maybe it was funny, maybe it said something I agreed with. And I think that was important, is like, for me at the end of the day, like mentorship is, at least I wanted someone who I could, ask, those quote unquote dumb questions to, without feeling the pressure, without feeling like I was going to look down upon. And so for me, it was really just finding that, and just seeing that, how can I make this a longer term thing? And like I said, I still talk to some of the people I met through ADP List at the very beginning of my career when ADP List just started, which also proves, I'm still new in my career, if you follow that timeline. But yeah, I would say it's really just trying to figure out, like, making sure it's people you connect with, because it's just, you never want to talk to a wall. It's not fun. I'm sure we've all been there. And so it's just finding someone you're comfortable with and looking for that more so than years of experience, I would say. I'll hand it back over.
I love this question. I love this answer. And I also love the question, but I also loved your answer. And I love the fact that you mentioned people who are in not formal mentors. So the let's say accidental mentors that you meet in your career. I love this perspective. And indeed, if I look back, I think what's funny about this category is that probably when it happens, when that relationship happens, you're not even aware that this person is giving you so much value. Oftentimes, I feel like it's something you retroactively realize that, oh my God, that person had such a big impact on me, and I learned so much at that time. So I think that it has to do something with intent as well. So an intentional mentorship relationship and an accidental mentorship relationship. It's really nice to think about things in this way. And I'm gonna invite Felix to share his perspective on how to choose a mentor and where to find him.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, so I think Frankie's right. Like Frankie mentioned something is super critical, which is that, mentors doesn't always mean, like a long-term relationship, or sometimes be one-off, or, it really depends on what is your goal and what stage it is. And so for me, my biggest advice on finding, like a mentor for where you're at right now is based on your goals, right? And, your goal could be that you're looking for a job promotion within your own company. Your goal might be you are negotiating a salary. Your goal might be, securing a job interview. Your goal might be learning how to use a new tool, right? It really depends on what goal you have right now in your career, and then actually find a mentor based on the goals, right? How many of the times where we actually think about, finding a mentor, we actually say, oh, we want to meet this particular person, unless that person is really famous, right? Of course, but, we rarely start off that way. We always say we need someone who could help me with certain topic, right? A certain goal, right? And so that is where you actually start to find mentors who can actually connect you with this goal, right? Which is to, how do you start off with a goal first and then to the person, right? It's rarely about the person that you meet, but rather the goal that this person can teach you, right? So I would always recommend, say, start off with a goal, know what you want actually. Don't just go to a mentor because you're looking for a job. I think this is something that I find myself repeating over the past, I don't know, couple of months, because I realized that a lot of people has the notion of finding mentors only when they need a job. That's not right. This is not it. Education shouldn't stop when you get a job, because the moment you stop education, when you get a job, you're not going to evolve. You're going to be left behind. And the people who actually become the VPs, the chief designs, and the senior VPs, they're the people that actually continuously seek mentorship every single week, every single month. And the moment you sort of stop your mentorship learning, the moment you get your job, that's where you stop learning. That's where you actually stop growing from your day job, because that's where you are clouded within your own perspective with your own jobs, and you stop seeking a different opinion. You stop seeking a different perspective. Now, the most valuable thing about that, about the whole idea of mentorship, is about seeking perspective from someone, right? On your goal that you're on, right? Be it, like I say, negotiating pay, or be it, managing remote teams, or being a people's manager, or being like a female in tech, right? These are goals where you can reach out to someone and continuously have that discussion and have that conversation, right? And so this is something that I've seen over the past, months and 1 year is really that, you shouldn't stop mentorship the moment you kind of get a job, because, you don't want to stop learning. That's just the best way to put it, right? And, always start off with a goal before you try to find someone, right? Don't go for a particular person who works at Facebook or Netflix. I mean, that sounds cool, right? That sounds cool and all. But the thing is this, right? Sometimes you want to start with your goal first, and then you look for those people later on. You don't necessarily want to start from like, oh, I want to start from Facebook. What's the point, right? Like what exactly is the point of finding someone from Facebook if they can't help with your goal, if your goals don't align, right? So always start off with the goal, start off with what you have, in your mind, and then find someone later.
Super valuable insight. I think that it's something that probably doesn't feel natural in the early days as a designer, because I think there's the amount of information and the amount of possibilities feel overwhelming, and you don't even know what your goal is. And so it may be very confusing when you're just starting out. But I think that especially as you advance through your career, you really need to stay in touch with yourself and in touch with your goals, and try to understand what are your potential next steps, or what spaces do you want to explore as you advance in your career. And so I think that it may be that as you grow as a designer, as you're targeting, I don't know, the VP level or the chief design officer, it may be more difficult to find a mentor, because of course the space of potential mentors is shrinking. But at the same time, it should be easier because you have more clarity. Your clarity grows as you advance in your career in terms of what you find meaningful work, what you want to be doing, what are the spaces that you want to work in, and the career goals you want to pursue. So, but I think that even for junior designers, starting with the goals is something that even if it might feel a bit difficult to figure the goals out, just start having conversations with people in the industry, and that will definitely help you clarify the goals you have. And now I just want to launch a small follow-up question to both of you. How do you actually write the message to the person that you want to be mentored by? Do you just reach out to them on LinkedIn, through ADP list? Definitely there's a system, so that solves this problem. ADP list is the answer to cold reaching to people you don't know. But if maybe, I don't know, I want someone who's not yet on ADP list, how do I reach out to that person? Because many people ask me, but do I just send out a message of, hi, this is me, I want you to be my mentor? Or how do you guys think this should happen? I'm gonna let Felix first this time, just to not discriminate.
Awesome. Okay. I would just say, ask that person to come on the ADP list then. But yeah, honestly, before ADP list happened, I think, everyone was just struggling to kind of like, DM people. And, some of us, we are introverts. And as much as I'm here today to give a talk to like 60 people or sometimes even more, I could tell you that I'm actually an introvert, and I don't feel comfortable, obviously being in strangers, or especially being in crowds around here in Singapore as well. So I rarely go out. But the thing is right, when you think about reaching out to someone on social media, it's actually a very different strategy that you kind of have to nail down. And something that I figured out earlier on in my career is that, you first, if you want to ever reach out to someone, you first got to find the relevance, right? So that's the number one point. You have to find the relevance, right? How is this person relevant to you? Is it a school? Are you guys from the same country? Do you share the same background, the previous company? What is the relevance, right? First is the relevance. Second is that what do you want from this person, right? And be very genuine and very real about it, right? If you want to learn something from them, you have to say, and you can't really say, hey, how are you, right? And if someone would have DM me today and said, hey, Felix, how are you? I probably will not reply that, because I might think it's a sales pitch. I might think it's, whatever. So be very clear with your point. Don't go beat around the bush, right? So be relevant, be straightforward, right? And say, hey, I think we met last year in a certain conference or whatever. I remember you were doing this. I'm stepping into like the design field. I would love to have a 30 minutes quick chat with you to kind of like, learn about how to transit into my career. If you have time for that, if you're open for it. And don't ever say, if you don't have time, it's okay. Please don't say that. All right. Please don't assume that they do not want to help you before they even reply you. All right. So always assume that they want to help you first. All right. And just say, if you have time, let's get on a quick call. All right. That's it. End there and then say thank you. All right. So that is my best tip for all of you. Be relevant, be straightforward, don't assume anything. Just be very, very genuine.
Brilliant advice. I loved it. I think that it's definitely something that one of the questions that I had prepared for tonight is what are annoying questions that mentors get, and you've answered that in advance. So definitely assuming that that person doesn't really want to help you, and they'll be probably doing this effort of talking to you. That's not the right starting on the right foot. So Frankie, what do you feel should a message to a mentor sound like?
So 100% agree with everything that Felix just said. On top of that, though, I want to add one other piece, or one other kind of piece of advice, I guess you could say, of how to do it. So I think another way of also doing it is, yes, find something that's relevant to both of you, like Felix said. But if that isn't the case, then I think another great way of starting the conversation in a very kind of less formal, very kind of easier way, and that feels more natural, is if they're posting a lot of content, or if they spoke at a conference or something, use that as your in. Hey, I heard you speak about XYZ topic. I'd love to, talk more about it. Or, hey, I stumbled upon your article or your YouTube channel. I love what you said here, but I had a question about XYZ. Can you, 30-minute chat, whatever it is, can you help answer this question I have? And I think it's a great way just to remember that, at the end of the day, we're all humans. And, we need the human interaction, but we also all have our own lives and things. And we need to understand that, we need to find ways of just doing it in less robotic ways, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So it's like finding ways that are going to get you that kind of extra foot in that door, rather than, to Felix's point of saying, hey, what's up? Hey, how are you? Most likely they're probably getting other messages. And so if you really want to stand out, it's finding that way to get above that hurdle. So just like staying active in the design community, or, doing a search and saying like, what are people talking about? And just using that to then go and say, hey, I saw this, can we chat type situation, and breaking the barrier that way.
And I also want to add a funny story to what you two just said. I'm a big fan of Steve Portigal. I don't know if if some of you might know it. He's a very prominent figure from my perspective in the research field, UX research. And so at some point I was with him in a Clubhouse room, and he mentioned something about a journalist that I'm a huge fan of. And he said he's a huge fan of that journalist, Louis Theroux, if some of you might know it. And then I found the opportunity. Probably this is not the best way of approaching, like with something funny and that's totally not UX related, but somehow for me it worked to start a conversation with that person I admired. And it was on a thing that, just like you said, Frankie, it's something that I found in common with that person, not necessarily hunting for something in common, but something that when I heard about it, I felt so excited that I just wanted to write and tell him that I also find that Louis is a great example of a researcher that's not necessarily doing research per se. And so, yeah, I mean, for him, it was also funny to someone picking up on that particular thing that he said. So it's a great piece of advice, and definitely finding things in common helps the conversation kick off. Yeah, so to the next question that I have prepared, let's say that I'm this person who wanted a mentor, found the mentor, I've scheduled the first meeting, everything is wonderful, but then what do I do with that meeting? How do I prepare for a meeting with a mentor? How do I make the most out of that meeting, if it's a one-time meeting, let's assume, or even if we're talking about periodical or more meetings than one. How do I prepare for that meeting? How do I go about it? Frankie, if you want to start with this question.
Sure. Too many menus about getting unmuted there. Got confused. But yeah, so I think to Felix's point, though, one of the biggest things you first off should do is figuring out why you schedule that meeting in the first place. What is it that you're looking for in terms of guidance? Is it interview prep? Is it portfolio reviews, coffee chat? What is it that you're there for? And I think that's a big thing, and being able to kind of state that up front, when you're starting that conversation with that person, and whenever I'm doing mentor calls, that's one of the first things I always ask, just to make sure that, we're both aligned and double checking that, hey, look, like I want to make sure this is relevant and that it's useful for your own time. So being clear about that. And then also I always say is like, come with a list of 3 to 5 questions. And these can be based off of those topics I just mentioned, or really just anything you're curious about kind of for the reasoning for this conversation. Because you may not get to all of them, you may not need them depending on how the conversation's flowing, but at least you have them, so you have some semblance of what you're looking for, but also so in case the conversation does die, like you are the one kind of pushing for it. Since I think at the end of the day, like you should be the one coming with the question, since you're the one who knows exactly what you're looking for. Obviously, as a mentor, we're here to help you, and at least I can just talk to a wall at this point, so I can just keep throwing things at you. But, the only way it's going to be really, specific to what you're looking for is if you kind of guide us in that way. So I would say the best thing you can do is just come with questions and be ready to, know what you're looking for.
Fantastic advice. I totally agree. Felix, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just obviously the one thing that I'll add is, the mentorship session actually also happens right after the call, because it's not really just on the call or during the message itself, but it's really the kind of things that you have to take away from the session itself, right? What is your next steps? What are your clear next steps? What is your journey? What are the next steps that you want to do for yourself? You could probably, improve on the next step and go back to the same mentor. You could meet someone different, that's fine. But most importantly is to have very, very clear next steps for yourself from the conversation. And I think this would make the mentor feel a lot valuable. Themselves, they'll feel very appreciated. They're not here for the money. They just want to help you. And so making sure that you see through the next steps and taking action on it, I think that's really, really key. So yeah, and then plus everything to Frankie said right above.
Yes, I totally agree as well. +1 to both of you guys. And now that we're speaking like a one-time meeting versus several meetings, my next question would be, is there an optimal duration for the mentorship relationship? How long should a mentorship relationship last? And of course, I can assume it depends, that you can have a one-time meeting, which is more valuable than, I don't know, years of mentoring with someone else. It's not necessarily measurable. But in your perspective, what's an ideal or a good length for a mentorship relationship, and how do you maximize a longer term relationship? How do you make sure that you're making the most out of the set of meetings that you have with that person? And Felix, if you want to go first on this question.
Yeah, for sure. So there's no set duration, honestly. So one of the things that we see a lot at AEPs are very one-off meetings, or rather like, you meet someone for 3 times or 4, and then you move on to the next person. And obviously there are some people who keep for a very long relationship. I almost think like, because the network and the industry is so big, you would almost always have people that you kind of go back to. But the thing is that shouldn't stop you from exploring new options. This is not an exclusive relationship. You're not in a date. You're not dating someone exclusively. You know what I'm saying? So you are allowed to see many people and learn from people, because you are curious. And so go out there and meet new people as well. Of course, you can have one mentor who you check in with on a regular basis. I have that as well. I personally have that as well. But on a monthly basis, I meet more mentors, and I also chat with them, and I also learn about them. For example, this week I actually have booked 2 mentoring sessions on ADP list. One of them is from IDEO. The other one is called, his name is called Aaron. He's from Netflix, and he just joined ADP list, and I booked the time with him on ADP list. I believe if you want to book him now, he's probably full. But the thing is this, right? Like, even for me, I'm still learning. You see, I'm still learning. I'm still going out there to meet people, right? To understand what is their processes. How can I improve myself? Because I know that even on in my job, as a founder of ADPs, I have so much things to learn. And so I would say there is no typical duration. You meet whenever you kind of like have a question, or you kind of have a goal in mind, and then you reach out to someone again, and they are always very happy to open their doors for you. Yeah, depending on their flexibility. And I think Frankie herself is a mentor as well, and she met many different people. I'm sure she can speak great volume of this as well. So yeah, to you, Frankie.
Sure, I'll jump right in. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Felix. I think it's very dependent on what you're going for. I think it kind of, what we were saying earlier is like, it depends on kind of where in your career you're at, in terms of, it doesn't necessarily mean like, are you starting out? Are you a senior? It's more of like what you're looking for in that moment, more so in terms of like where you're at. And I think it really just depends on like what you're expecting. So I've been on ADP list now. I've lost track for how long as a mentor, and I've definitely done a bit of both. Like, I've had mentees who are just one-offs, like a portfolio review, and that was that. Or I've had other ones who I actually now host a book club with, one of my mentees that I met there. And so we now like talk obviously all the time, and it just kind of continued that relationship. So it really just depends what you're looking for. But I would also say, and I totally just lost my train of thought there. Oh, there we go. Got it back. I'd also say one of the big things to do is keeping that relationship going, even if you don't necessarily want to book another session, but figuring out ways of just every so often touching base with them. You never really know down the line. Maybe they work for a new company that you're really interested in. Maybe they're working on a project that, like, on the side that you want to start getting involved with potentially. So I would say is like, check in with your mentors, even if you're not meeting with them constantly. And the ways you can check in, obviously it's whatever you're comfortable with, but a great way is if like you did a portfolio review with them, is, a month, 2 months, whatever it is down the line, saying, hey, look, like, just checking in. I wanted to let you know that, I took your advice. I've updated my portfolio. These changes really resonated with me. If you have the time, feel free to take a look. Like, I'm always open for, more feedback. Hope you're enjoying work or whatever it is. Totally spitballing that email right there, but I think you get the point. Is like just trying to find ways to like touch base, or even just sending a LinkedIn message. Just if you saw something that they were working on, and just keeping them in the keeping them in the back of your head, and the same for them. I kind of lost what the question was. I kind of went on a rant there. Sorry.
No, that's great. I mean, the important thing the goal for tonight is to put as much value as possible in there. It doesn't have to be structured or very formalized. So yay for your rant. And I'm just gonna go ahead and ask one more question before we take questions from our audience. If there aren't any questions from the audience, I have backup questions, don't worry, but it would be great if we would maximize this meeting for you as participants. And my next question is actually, I got a set of questions from somebody on Instagram. I think his name is Alex Bandrabur. I don't know where he's from. Anyhow, I think I saw him in this call. He sent hi. So you sent me a lot of valuable questions. I mean, I wanted to ask all your questions. It's really hard to choose one, but I'm gonna choose a very basic, simple one. And maybe if we have time, I ask more of them. How can mentees repay the mentor's time? It's a really interesting question. I think that I decided to ask it because every time I use somebody's time, I feel like I have to repay them. I feel this, of course, gratitude, but also I feel like I don't know, I feel weird if I don't do something in return, or it feels like I owe them something, even though they do nothing that makes me feel like that. But it's just a mental reflex that I probably have. So how can mentees repay their mentors for the time they're offered? Frankie, do you have any thoughts around that?
Sure, I can jump right in. I think there's two pieces to it. So for me, I think the biggest thing that I've kind of realized is, I've loved obviously being a mentor and having all these conversations, but I think for me, it's sometimes hard to know whether or not it's really resonated with that mentee, or do we end up going on a rant where we ended up, do we end up doing something that was actually beneficial to you? Was it a great session? And yes, usually, you kind of hear that the end of the conversation as you kind of, say your goodbyes and whatnot, but I think it's sometimes hard to also gauge it a little bit. So for me, the biggest thing is, just getting that feedback from the mentee, whether it's, on ADP list, getting a review and then writing and talking about that, or sending a follow-up email. I always do that. So if they then respond and kind of let me know, it's just a great way to make sure that like I'm staying relevant and I'm, giving what they actually want. And then the other piece being also is I've had this several times and I love it, honestly, is when I'll have someone show up to a mentee call or a mentor call, and they'll end up being like, hey, like I ended up, hearing one of my friends ended up having a session with you last week, 2 weeks, whatever it was. And, they were telling me how great it was, and I just couldn't wait to schedule a session with you. So then it's just like word of mouth and knowing that what you're doing really is helpful. So that for me really is what I love, being able to know that it's actually helping and it's, I'm paying it back. So that's what I would say I'd recommend doing.
That's wonderful. I will be doing that with my mentors more when it's really, I mean, it's not hard to do, to just give a thank you message after every call, and also recommend that person. Yeah, I mean, it's low effort, but it's high impact if you want. So Felix, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, of course. I think this is a really interesting question. I think for me, I personally am very curious. All my day job probably revolves around how to keep our mentors happy and how to keep the mentees happy as well. Obviously, like the mentees are, they get the most value because they are getting the portfolio reviews, they are getting tips on how to get job promotion and whatnot. At different stage of their career and any goals, the mentees are definitely getting the value. But, a lot of people, including, one of the things was that, our investors, truth to be told, I've always been very transparent with people. And I said, look, one of the things that investors told me was in the early days was that, like, you guys are crazy. Why would people do this for free? Like, why would people think about that? Now, I always tell everyone to imagine this. And now I'm going to tell you to imagine this, right? Now, think about it. Today, you're a senior designer. Someone on LinkedIn comes to you or wherever, right? It might be on the streets or whatever, comes to you and said, hey, like I've been checking out your profile. I'm a huge fan of yours. I really love what you're doing in general, and I want to be like you. Do you think you could spare me 15 to 30 minutes for a quick chat? Just maybe this Friday or maybe anytime you're free. And you see, your reflex and your reaction wouldn't be say, buy me a coffee before I do that for you, or pay me before I do that for you. No one ever says that. I can promise you today, if you try, no one ever says pay me before I meet you. They will likely reply you. For anyone who replies, they will likely say, sure, how about certain date and time? I'll be there, or whatever, right? And for you, you say, yeah, sure, I'll be there. So you don't have to pay, But what the mentors are looking for is actually a convenient way for them to give back at their own time and own target, which is why, at ADPs, we build multiple tools for our mentors to, schedule their own time to give back, because we know that the mentors wants to give back, but all they want is just, a comfortable way and a flexible way for them to do so, right? And we recently introduced what we call the dashboard, where mentors can even see really cool insights, like how many people I've met across the world, how many minutes I've spent on ADPs mentoring people around. That's really cool, right? And so, the mentors truly want to give back. Now, one thing is that how do you give mentors something, right? As Frankie said, taking action, showing them that you appreciate their thoughts. I think that's really, really important. In a more tangible way as well, is to really come back to them and say, thank you so much for what you do, and really send them a thank you note, as what Frankie has also rightfully mentioned. But I think I will go as far as sometimes to, take a selfie, take a shot, and then I will post their faces on my Instagram, or not Instagram, like my Twitter or my LinkedIn, and thank them publicly, right? Share what you have learned from them publicly. I realized that people really love that, especially, for mentors on ADP list. They love that because, they're sharing their knowledge. And if you could thank them and share their knowledge publicly as well, I think that spreads even further for them. So yeah, definitely, I feel like, that's something that the mentors appreciate a lot as well. So yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it helps so much to show also public appreciation, because sometimes also the mentors, they want to reach more people. Maybe they want to help others. They want to be, everybody needs, let's say, recognition for their efforts, for the good they're doing in the world. So also talking publicly about it is a very nice way to show appreciation. So I think we have 10 more minutes. So that means maybe optimistically 3 questions. We have a question from one of our students, and I want to ask her question. Her name is Akiko. She's from Japan. Her question is something that I also don't know the answer for, so I'm asking it from myself as well. What is the difference between a coach and a mentor and the teacher? So how can people understand maybe what they need in terms of the point they're in their career? So how do we differentiate? Because I'm always confused as to how coaching is different from mentorship. And my understanding is that coaching is something that's more around business, but maybe I'm wrong. So I just want to hear your thoughts on whether you have an understanding of how these terms differ between themselves. Any of you wants to jump in on this question?
I can jump in. Haven't fully formalized my answer, but let's see where I can go with this one, because I do think it's a really interesting question that I haven't really thought too much about myself. But I think if I'm just kind of spitballing here, I would say that I think when I think of coaching, I think more of like career coach or life coach, and it's more of like a means to an end of like, how do I get to that job? How do I make myself more happy with my life, or kind of get to where I want to be? So it's more of like coaching to a set kind of end place almost, where mentorship, as we've been saying all morning, afternoon, evening, wherever we all are, I think is more of like, how do we kind of keep that education going almost, of like, maybe there's an end goal, but it's more of like a stepping stone than an end goal, I would say, of like, it's a goal for that moment. So it's a goal of, how do I get to my first job? But then once you get there, it's okay, how do I then move up in my ladder, in the career ladder, or whatever else it is. And so to me, that's the biggest difference. It's like, one is more of like a kind of side by side help along the way, where the other one is more of like a let's get to where you want to get to. But that's just kind of where I'm thinking, but I'm curious if Felix has a different impression.
All right, thanks for that, Frankie. So definitely, I agree with what you say, and I think one of the things that the main difference between the mentor and the coach, I almost say that a coach does this for a living, and a mentor does this for a calling. Is entirely different thing, right? So a coach does this for a living because they are paid to do it, and a mentor does it because it's their calling, and they do it for a purpose. They don't want any money. They just want you to grow genuinely. So that's the difference, right? So, when we recently fundraise, and people say that, oh my God, ADP is going to be a coaching platform. No, we're not going to be a coaching platform. We don't want to be a coaching platform. In fact, we want to keep it free. And, the $1.3 million is to continue to keep it free even longer and even better. And so I think that's the main difference, you see. And I think for ADPs, we've always seen mentoring as a calling and a form of purpose and higher purpose for us to continue to give back at a much larger scale together with all of us here on the call. So yeah, I think that is that is the main difference. Coaching is for living, and mentorship is calling. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Now I have this figured out better myself. So thank you so much for your answers. I'm going to take 2 more questions and then we wrap up this wonderful event. The question from Victor came in the chat. A lot of time junior or young designers are just starting out. They're not always very proactive, or they feel weird about reaching out to design leaders or senior designers for help or mentorship. How do you feel we can cultivate a more open and transparent relationship? And I think that this question, I think it's more like for the entire industry to answer in a way. How do we cultivate a more open and friendlier space in the design industry? Felix, if you want to start, I know that you're already doing it with ADP List. You're cultivating a more open and transparent place with it. But what other things come to your mind when you think about it?
I think, first of all, when you think about open and transparent, it always begins from you as an individual, right? I think as a founder, for me, from day one, James and I, we have done ADP List. Quite frankly, when we raised the money, we were even thinking like this was not meant to be like what we have done, because we genuinely did it from our heart. We still do, and we show up every single day on social media, obviously everywhere. Wherever people ask me, hey, you want to come to this event? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And I think it always starts from an individual, really being genuine with your mission, right? And today at ADPs, I think, one of the things is that we talk a lot about is fighting the inequality towards the access of, education. And I think the inequality is real. If you've seen different countries and different places, I think, you will always feel the impact. And without even reading into statistics, you could almost feel that there are kids out there who deserve better. And for me and James, we just want a better world for that. And, I strongly believe that it starts from individual, and not just the leaders, but every single individual to be transparent with their thoughts, to be very open, and be willing to share. I think there's a lot of people that look at ADP List, and I always share with them like our journey. I always share with them like what I've learned personally as well. And so I think, to create an open community, it really starts from you as an individual. And also, I think when you do that, people tend to radiate towards you. And I think people also tend to be a lot more transparent when you start to open up and be vulnerable first. Yeah, Frankie?
Yep, I totally agree with you there. I think it definitely starts with the individual, but I think it also is a two-way street. So I think 100% as to everything you just said of, making sure that, you are as the junior designer taking the effort and making the effort to, make those connections and start those conversations. But I think there's the other side of it as well of, and I'll try and keep this rant short on my end. I know I've had this discussion before, but I think it's also the other end of, senior designers and individuals who are, have been in the industry for longer, I think need to be more open and more willing to, have these conversations with junior designers and be more willing to, be the voice that's open to hearing those perspectives, and being willing to, take a chance on them, if that's what you want to call it. I think it's, there needs to be more individuals who are trying to push the boundaries, and are willing to say, hey, look, you're a junior designer. All right, you don't need to have 4 years to apply to this junior role. And I think it's just that mindset as well as like trying to make it more open. And I think there has been a pretty decent push so far, but I think it's just, we need to push stronger for that of, junior roles need to be junior roles, and that there needs to be more availability for that. And so, yeah, basically just trying to make sure that there really is, both sides trying to stand up for this connection and for this mentorship, and this ability for both sides to flourish, honestly, because at the end of the day, like being a junior is an advantage. You're not coming with the baggage of, oh, I've done this project 100 times and always done it this way, so we have to do it this way. This way, if you're junior, you're not going to have that. So you're probably going to think more outside the box. So to those senior designers, you're going to be more helpful. And so it's just, trying to remember that at the end of the day that, both sides need to be more willing.
Absolutely wonderful insight. Just one last question from Michelle. Let's answer it like in 20 seconds. The first answer that comes to our mind to the question, how do you get over the imposter syndrome and be confident in a meeting with a mentor? Frankie, you can go first, really short. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Getting over imposter syndrome, go.
Sure, I'll keep it short and sweet. Imposter syndrome is, first off, something we all will go through at some point in our career, or even multiple times in our career. And so I think the biggest thing with that is just thinking through of, like, I like to think of it, one of my actual ADP-less mentors told me this and it stuck with me, is thinking about those individuals who are, quote unquote, the bigger fish out there. So thinking about them less of the big fish and more of a lot more medium-sized fish who are there to help you and to be those mentors. So trying to just reframe it so that they're no longer this intimidating aspect, but that they're there to really help you instead. And I think if you do that, it really helps kind of think, oh, okay, like there's people who are actually trying to help me. I'm not really competing with everyone. It's less about that, a bit of that imposter syndrome. I'll stop there and hand it off to Felix though.
All right, awesome. And I'll give a really rapid answer as well. My short answer is that try to be the best version of yourself every single day. Be 1% better, be a few percent better. Just try to be the best version of yourself every single day. One way to do that is to keep track of what you're doing every single day and making sure that you yourself, you are keeping yourself in check and keeping your own career goals and your goals in check and not compare with anyone, like what Frankie said, not compare with anyone. So just remember to show up, be the best version of yourself, work the hardest, I often tell my team this, and people call me extreme. And I think, since I was young, I've always had this mindset, and I say, if I want to do something, I want to be the best at it, right? I want to be the best at it. I'm not here to be like second and whatnot. I'm here to be the best. And, and sometimes people ask me, so how do you hire? I said, when I hire, I just tell people, hey, if you want to be the best, come join me. If you want to be the second, go somewhere else, And I said, look, just go in there with the mindset, and this is the mentality, go in there, try to be the best version of yourself. I think that to me is a very individual mindset. Yeah, so I think you can do that.
Thank you so much for these incredible answers. I have a lot of takeaways to unpack myself, so I feel like I've learned a lot from this conversation. I can't thank you enough for being here and for giving 120% to this conversation. It was super valuable. For me, I'm confident it was valuable for everyone. To anybody who wants to thank them, you can take a screenshot of this meeting and tag them on socials and thank Felix and Frankie for their time. Follow them on LinkedIn when they're most active, and Frankie is also super active on Instagram, UX by Frankie. She's doing a fantastic job putting their valuable content. Go follow them, and thank you so much once again. And if everybody wants to join future Mento events, join the Mento space on Meetup, the Mento page on Meetup, or follow us on Instagram, mentodesign.academy. And with this being said, we can wrap up this event. And thanks to everybody who joined and for participating at this. And oh my God, we're so punctual. It's like sharp timing. If you want to say something before we go, Frankie and Felix, I don't want to cut you off. If not, just wave and just thank you to everyone.
I just want to say thank you to you for putting this together and letting us speak about this topic. I know Felix would probably agree with me. It's a super important one. Always happy to talk about it. And then also just if anyone wants to, continue the conversation, I'm happy to chat. Message me on Instagram or LinkedIn or ADP list. More slots are always opening. So happy to continue it there. So thank you.
Yeah. And just a shout out to Euna, you and your team for organizing this. I think it's such an important topic. And so all of you who are here today, please share this event on behalf of all of us here. Share the insights, share the learnings. Every step we take together as a community is towards a world where mentorship is accessible to people. And I think we're all on this mission together. And so shout out to you for organizing this event and bringing us together. So appreciate it.
Thank you so much for accepting it. And Felix, I know you have to run in a meeting. I just want to ask Radu, who has been the mastermind behind this meeting, to leave it open for like 1-2 minutes so people can go and check the links in the chat. If anybody else wants to connect with anybody else, put your socials there. And let's try for 2-3 minutes to connect with each other so we feel like we've actually met people on this meeting. So yeah, everybody who wants to go can go. You can turn off your videos, just focus on the chat, and let's try to make some connections right now. Thank you all, and bye.